This lecture is to teach you about the different factors that one must look at when trying to evaluate the accuracy of a political poll. The 5 categories are representative samples, careful and objective wording, respondents' knowledge, cost efficiency versus accuracy, sampling error. These come from the famous and one of the original scientific pollsters, George Gallup. And we use a lot of these ideas to help us measure the accuracy of polls even today. The first is a representative sample. The sample of those interviewed must be a representative of the entire population. Every citizen cannot be polled regarding his or her opinion on a whole range of issues, but those selected must allow the pollster to make accurate assessments of public opinion. One example people use regarding this is the soup metaphor, and that when you want to get a good taste of a soup, if you dip your spoon in the top of the soup, you're only going to get a little bit of the broth. And you're not going to get all the good flavors of the noodles or the vegetables or the meat that you may have found in that soup. That in order to get an accurate sample of that soup, you got to dip the spoon in, give it a nice stir, then ultimately take a big spoonful of soup with all the nice flavors within it. That's because we need random sampling. The most common technique employed is random sampling, which gives everyone in the population an equal probability of being selected. Most national surveys sample between 1,000 and 1,500 persons. The magic number to get a random sample is 1,500. 1,500 is that magic number, and that really gets you to the point of having a margin of error of 3 or lower. The second is careful and objective wording. When giving a survey, you want to make sure that the questions being asked are appropriate. You want to make sure that the questions are not leading questions, that they're not going to impact your overall answers. The structure and wording of the question is very important in obtaining an accurate response. Loaded or emotional words should not be used, and the pollster must not indicate what the right answer is. For example, consider a question like, how much do you dislike leaders of Middle Eastern countries? You could hardly expect an accurate answer, because that key word is you're already telling people that they need to dislike leaders of Middle Eastern countries. The categories of answers also determine the results of the poll. A yes or no question, such as do you think the president is doing a good job, will give very different results than a question that gives the interviewee a chance to rank the president's performance. Excellent, very good, good, average, poor, or very poor. When you provide that variety and that diversity, the more accurate responses you're going to get. The third is respondents' knowledge. People must have some knowledge of the issues they're asked about. If the issue is complex, such as American policy towards Afghanistan, people should be allowed to say, I don't know, or I haven't thought about it much. Still, people are often reluctant to admit a lack of knowledge about political issues, so pollsters must always allow for the fact that people often pretend to know things that they don't. And that's one of the areas in which one can be skeptical or critical of polls, is that you don't entirely know the level of knowledge of each person's answer. Anybody can say they approve of something, but that doesn't quite tell you how much or how well they understand the issue. Next is cost efficiency versus accuracy. Almost all polls have a budget, but accuracy should not suffer as a result. For example, a straw poll that asks television viewers to call in their opinions is not very expensive, but it generally is not very accurate either. Another example of a straw poll would be a Twitter poll. If you are trying to figure out what people think, you tweet out a question with some suggestions and people participate in the poll. It's not quite a random sample. Those are generally people who follow you. So if someone from a local TV show or a national TV show wanted to ask your opinion on some political matter, well, generally the people that follow that person are going to be the people that participate in that poll. So the numbers are not going to be skewed, and you won't have a random sample.
The people that call in usually feel strong about the issue, and some of them call in more than once. So the efficiency is not quite there, or the accuracy is not quite there. And last is sampling error. The same poll conducted with a different random sample almost certainly will produce slightly different results. These slight variations are known as sampling errors. A typical poll of about 1,500 usually has a sampling error of plus or minus 3%. That means that 95% of the time the poll results are within 3 percentage points of what the entire population thinks. If 60% of the population supports a candidate for office, in actuality, 57 to 63% of the population supports him or her. Usually the larger the sample in proportion to the population, the smaller the sampling error. That 3 percentage points, plus or minus, is the magic number. And generally that number is achieved when you have at least 1,500 people participate in a poll. These are your 5 factors that are going to tell you and help you identify the accuracy or evaluate the accuracy of a political poll. Keep these in mind when you're looking at data, when you're looking at polls, the kind of questions that are asked, when trying to determine if the numbers you see are accurate or not. Allow yourself to be a critical thinker. When you read the news, you need to be able to question and confirm if that information in the polls is accurate or not. Use these factors when thinking about that, and you're going to do a great job.